第3场的演讲，我们将会由Itay Keren 来为我们主讲。那Itay Keren是一位独立游戏开发者，同时也是一位广受好评、充满实验性的横向卷轴动作游戏 Mutation 11之作者。Mutation 11因为突破性游戏设计、操作方式、视觉表现以及开发技术等面向，获得许多好评与奖项。本作者Itay Keren 将透过范例解说 Mutation 11背后所运用的技术，以及开发过程中学到的各种小技巧和教训。Let's welcome Itay Keren.
Hello. So thank you. It's an honor being here. And just before I begin, let me tell you that I guess a lot of people are developers here. So let's make it casual. If you have a question, just ask. Of course, I'll try to leave as much time as I can for Q&A. But if I don't explain something good enough for you, just let me know and ask me. Right. So I'm going to talk about the Mushroom 11 technology. First of all, if you don't know, Mushroom 11 is a game about destruction and growth. You are an amorphous blob, and the only way you can move is by destroying your own cells. So the game, quick background on the game, started in 2012 in the Global Game Jam event at NYU, New York. The theme was the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, and I thought it would be great to make a platformer that you play as a batch of cells that you can destroy the cells and other cells come instead. I decided to call it Pixel Blob, which quickly changed into Mushroom 11. This is how it looked after 2 days, and you can see that it's very prototypey, but there was also already something in there. So I want to talk a little bit about the journey, especially the technical journey that I went in the 3.5 years while making the game. So let's talk a little bit about the design fundamentals of Mushroom 11. So first of all, what was this game? This game needs to have a pointer-controlled eraser with freeform pruning. So originally I thought it would be a great mobile game, but also designed for a mouse. And by the way, I am working on the mobile version of the game right now. There's no limit or penalty for erasing cells. And there's no force that is applied while erasing. And that's not exactly true, but we'll talk about it later. Any cell that lost grows back immediately, whether it's by the eraser or by lava or if it's it falls off the screen. It always grows back to the original size, even if only one cell is left. And there's no physical implication to growth, meaning it's not pushing against anything. It can only grow into empty areas. And it doesn't grow when it doesn't grow in mid-air. So that's also good. As for the structure, it conforms to the environment, like we said. It only grows into crevices and areas that it can grow into. It never pushes into objects. There's a rigid skeleton that supports any weight, which means its own weight or a weight of other objects. And it can never be broken, only pruned. And we'll explain a little bit about the collision mechanism later. So, and of course, one of the most important parts is that the mushroom can be split into multiple pieces, and each one of those pieces can grow individually. Cells that are removed from one piece can grow into the other, and of course, the only limitation is the number of cells across all the pieces never exceeds the maximum, which is, by the way, 132. Pieces can reattach if properly aligned, and we'll talk about that later. So physics persists through splitting and reattachment, meaning that of course the dynamic mass is based on the size, but basically if a certain point or certain cell within a batch of cells has a certain velocity, it will sustain that velocity. Also that the dynamic center of mass is recalculated regularly, which is kind of a heavy thing to do on the physics side of trying to do this seamlessly. Okay, so what are the requirements for when designing the game and trying to figure out the tech? Physically, it needs to be 100% rigid. This is much. There's a game called World of Blue. You probably know about this game. It's a huge inspiration, but the last thing I wanted to do is have this creature be movie. It needed to be very strong. All the puzzles are based on that. It needs to be kind of round edges, allowing the creature to tumble around. I decided pretty soon to make it use a grid for the predictable growth structure. You can see where it's going to grow. And again, applying no force over the environment. No main piece. All the pieces are individually growing, and there's no one piece that you can, if you kill it, you're going to die. The growth is obviously limited for many reasons. Most of them are design, but also in terms of tech, you wouldn't want there's a limit to how much your processor wants to support. So we have to balance the cell count, the size, and various different parameters. Now let's talk about the collider structure and the optimization. So this is how it started on day one. There was a collider for each one of the cells. It was a box collider, which, by the way, is a little bit more complicated than sphere, for example. And there were just way too many colliders. So I removed all the colliders that were not on the perimeter. Basically left only the ones that had less than 4 neighbors. So there was no, but of course there were no tumble. You couldn't tumble because of the sharp corners. So I changed it into sphere colliders, again, per each one of the perimeter cells. So tunneling was enabled, but there were still too many colliders, and when you only leave the perimeter colliders, then you'll have this interlocking between different pieces. If they go into each other diagonally, it's pretty much going to lock every time, as you can see. Oh, by the way, this was how the prototype ended up. So it was sphere colliders on the perimeter. Just didn't work very well. So as I started working on the game later, I thought of using mesh colliders. So those are these arbitrary shaped colliders. They are pretty fast to solve, but very inefficient to change. And since the game, the shape changes at least once every frame, this was pretty much something I couldn't work around. And honestly, there was also a huge problem, which is the concave to concave, empty shape to empty shape could not be solved, at least back then. So that's kind of a non-starter to begin with. So this is how it ended up being, and this is how mushroom learning works. It has a variable length capsule colliders. So for every line, I'm calculating on the fly what kind of capsule colliders I need to use. So it's a very simple collider. It's actually easier to solve than a box. It has round corners, which is great. It has full coverage, which means that even the center is full. They're very hard to interlock. It's practically impossible. It's optimized for the number of changes, which is the most important part. What I ended up doing is not only do I use pools for all the colliders, for all the different capsules, I have pools for every individual length of capsules, from one cell, which is a sphere really, 2, 3, 4, and all the way to, I don't know, 20. And every time I need to change the line, I take the existing collider, throw it away, put it in its own pool and then take another one from the pool. So I'm just fetching, I don't need to allocate ever, which you would never want to do. And the pools are redistributed and replenished when the game is idle, meaning when you have like half a second when the player is not doing anything, which happens all the time. So as for the growth and destruction, so we already talked about the perimeter cells. So there's a linked list of all the perimeter cells, and just goes through them and looks for their probability of growth. The per cell probability is a number between 0 and 1, where 0 is it will not grow, 1 it will definitely grow. And it just takes this random number and sees if that number is smaller than the probability, and then if it is, it grows. The probability is reduced if you erase. So imagine that you have all the cells in this big circle blob are started at 1, and then you remove the right-hand side. So that side will become 0, which means that it will not grow on that side. It will try to grow on the other side. So it promotes forward growth. That is the magic of mushroom learning. I think that's the most important. Also, another small thing that made a huge difference is if it tries to grow, for example, into a wall, imagine that it's in a tunnel. It tries to go into the wall. And every time I try to grow, beforehand I try to test it to make sure that that area is empty. If it's not empty, I mark that probability as 0 as well. So it will not try to grow into that cell for a while, for like 2 seconds. Which means that that's why in the tunnels it runs so fast. It will try once and then will not try again. And the probability is increased for a chosen piece. A chosen piece is, and we'll talk about it much later, if there's a camera area that promotes you to go from right to left, then the left one is the chosen one. So it will kind of make you go faster if you ignore the one on the right. All right, let's talk about growth and destruction real quick. Collider, as we said, collider changes are pre-checked to make sure that we're not growing into other colliders. The effect of that is pretty harsh. It basically means that there's an infinite velocity collision, if you think about it, because there's no directionality. So it's really hard to solve. So we just want to make sure that it doesn't happen. So we make sure that before we grow, we know that it's empty. Also, the changes in colliders happen while the body is asleep. So if you think about it, if you change the center of mass of an object, you would expect the physics to compensate by applying some force on the other direction. So I put it to sleep, and then I make the change, and I wake it up. And that's how all the changes are very, very smooth, because I'm basically cheating physics. Okay, splitting. So this is a prototype. This is, of course, not what's ended up in the game. What's happening with splitting? Imagine that you have a rigid body. And by the way, I didn't say, but the game was made in Unity. So a lot of the terms that I'm using are based on Unity's terminology. So when you have a rigid body that has a lot of colliders in it, there's nothing inherent in that rigid body that tells the player that if there's a gap between those colliders, then it needs to split it. They can move, the object can move even if there are holes in it. So I need to go ahead and check for holes, or islands as I call them. And one simple way is to use flood fill, and every computer science person here probably knows what it means. You paint recursively the area that you suspect might be an island, and then every time there's a change, I'm looking at the exposed and new perimeter cells, and I'm starting a flood fill. And if the number of painted cells is lower than the number of total cells, which I know, then I know that this is an island and I can remove it. The problem is that it used to spike. It's a pretty slow process that happened pretty much every frame, and it was very, very sluggish. So I came up after 2 months of work with something called dynamic flood fill. And I talked about it before, I just want to show you again. So dynamic flood fill basically says that every exposed cell and every new perimeter cell starts a fill group, which I visualized here with a color. Each one of those groups expands up to N1 cells per frame. So it expands very, very slowly, and not more than N2 total between all the groups. So I know that it's going to grow slowly. If it's a big mushroom, then it will grow, it will just fill itself up very slowly. Once a group touches another group, it marks it as neighbors. When a group is complete, then it checks all the other neighbors that it knows already to see if they're if all of them are complete, as we see on the right-hand side. And in that case, it sums up all the painted cells. And then if that number is smaller than the total cells, then it's an island just like before. But here's the nice thing about it. If a cell is removed, I can just, if it's part of a group, if it's already painted, then I can just invalidate that group and then repaint it again. If it's not part of a group, I ignore it because it will get painted soon. If it's a cell that's added, then if it's adjacent to a group, like we see in the blue one, then you auto-edit, it's already painted. If not, it will get painted soon. And this is how it looks. It's actually slowed down for your viewing pleasure. All right, let's move on. Oh, by the way, these groups persist through splits, which is also something that's pretty cool that happened by mistake. So, reattachment. Because of the grid nature of the game, it only happens in 90-degree angular difference, 0, 90, 8, 180, 270. And there has to be face-to-face touch. And the reason is that if you have a corner-to-corner, then it will, let's imagine that I just reattach the corner-to-corner, and then on the next frame it will get split and then reattached. You don't want that. As we said, before we put it in its place, we make sure that the colliders, because there are always a little bit of small changes, so we make sure that the area is completely empty. There are no other colliders there. And then I set the new colliders by just either removing them acquire them from the old mushroom, or set new ones using our nice capsule pools. And I visually animate the mushroom into place. So this actually physically happens in an instant, but then there's that animation that's happening. And there's going to be a nice animation showing that in a second. There's also some particle animation on the seams. 1 second, I'll show that. Before that, I want to talk about some additional physical forces. Clearly, there's some gravity, momentum, collisions, all these things we know about. We talked about this fake physical force that is applied, there's actually some force applied by the eraser, which allows you to have a little bit more control over your mushroom, especially if it's in mid-air. And the artificial gyro effect. The ground will always try to stabilize you, and in mushroom, when you actually want to promote tumbling, then I apply some gyro effect, kind of force it to continue its angular velocity if possible. And also, as you can see, it always avoids erasing the last cell, which actually was a change that happened really late into the development and changed a lot. Instead of making this very meticulous game where you need to make sure that you don't destroy the last cell, it became a very, very fast-paced game, which enabled this speed to control trade-off, which is if you keep it very small, it will always try to grow really fast, so it's great for speedrunners, but also it means that you have very little control over the mushroom. All right, and here's how the mesh looks like, and you can see some of the things we talked about before, which is the reattachment, for example, and how the seams look like when it reattaches, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the mushroom visuals. So as we said, it's completely detached from the physics. It's like a mask on top of all the physics, making it look fluid and juicy. Every corner has its own velocity. This is what you see there. It has a velocity that's based on growth and erase, and also split and reattachment. Every corner holds up to 4 vertices, which you connect to their respective quads. And there's a texture that is the mask, and also it doubles as an overlay, as the highlight that you can see in the corners. So that's one of the textures. That's how it looks. And the bottom texture is the blood flow animation. And the way it works is it has a tiled keyframe texture. It's a huge 2048 by 256. Yes. With 8 keyframes across. You can see that it looks like it's the same texture duplicated 8 times, but there are actually some very, very minor changes that you can see in the keyframe. And the thing is, it tiles horizontally into the next frame and vertically into itself. And which means that no matter what size the mushroom is, it will never have cuts or seams in it. And all I need to do when I want to start to make the animation, I change the offset of the texture into the next keyframe. And because it's a single texture, it also means that it changes across all the pieces. So you have one material, which is one draw call. And all you need to do is use like a sine wave that goes back and forth, which creates this illusion of blood flow. All right, so color tinting. So each cell has a color value. And the perimeter cells, as you can see, have their own kind of darkening to make it seem 3D. But most importantly, you have this consumption or infection effect that you have. And the way it works is it just takes the color and pushes it through with some flow velocity and pressure to make this simulated simple turbulence effect. You know what it is. So putting it all together, you have the perpetual growth up to a cell limit. You have visually dynamic fluid mesh that changes all the time with its own colorful spreading infection. But physically, it's just a simple collider grid that can split and reattach with the center of mass can affect the environment as well, because it's just a collider running in the physics world. Yeah, and splitting obviously can happen either by the player or by the environment. All right, let's go into level generation. So the terrain is set up manually in the editor, and this was a choice that me and Simon, the artist, made very early in the production. We wanted to hand paint everything. There are more interesting tools coming out every day, how to create very rich levels, but we wanted this control. So we use a technique we call metagrid with shapes that combine seamlessly with each other, and I'll show how. There are multiple angles and obstacles designed for various environments, and it's all hand designed and painted. So here's the metagrid. You start with a simple terrain grid, and the tiles cover all the angles. So you have all the different angles, then you can later flip them from left to right or right to left. And then you do this for 4x4, 2x2, and 1x1. So you already have a lot of different options of how to combine them. And then you add the concave and convex variations of all these angles. So between all these different elements and some additional one-offs, like all these obstacles that we have, like staircases and corners, we can combine this into a lot of different, infinite options for level design. So for example, if you wanted to make this shape, you would combine all these different pieces and then fill up the gap. The tiles are collectively tinted per level. Each level has a different color scheme. And then there's an external encoded skirt because it's kind of it comes out of the original grid size. So when you connect two pieces together, it will always allow it to be seamless. So, of course, each one of those tiles is preset with the colliders. You use the magic of prefabs, as we see here. On top of that, we have this art toolkit that Simon's made for every time I wanted to make whatever level, or whatever obstacle, I come up with an idea like I had here, which is a falling building, and you know it's exactly the same building, only with all the different art styles that you apply it to. As for the presentation layers, that's a very important thing in how Mushroom Learn works. It has a perspective background camera with all the different parallax layers running in different speeds, obviously because it's perspective. Then on top of that, you apply the 2D orthogonal level camera. Everything is in the same layer, so all the terrain sprites, they never have gaps between them, and you can apply all the overlays and everything. And then you have a perspective foreground camera. That's also, you can apply different layers of different depths. And it all comes together like so. And you can see that the different parallax layers are placed in different distances, and so they move in different speeds. The special background items like buildings are just sprinkled in between those layers to make it more interesting. And there's a slowly moving sky layer to also apply a little bit more motion. And this is how it all looks like. I'll talk maybe later about the slanted sky. We'll get to it. Okay, so the background. So the wall elements, the wall use the same idea of the 4x4 meta grid. So we can build different. What time is it right now? We have a half hour more, right? Okay. Got scared for a second. Okay, I saw it at 3-minute sign. Sorry. Background. So we have the 4x4 meta grid. So we can make whatever type of wall that we want. There are different detail and enhancement overlays. And all this thing is packed into only two textures, and this is the most important part. And these days, it's pretty easy to do so because you have a lot of these things are done automatically. But we had to do this by hand. And so you have one texture that's transparent and another one that's opaque. And I'll show how we combine between them. So you take the opaque part and apply the transparent part. And the reason is that we always favor the use of opaque versus transparent to avoid excessive overdraw. And the reason is that opaque pixels are always the last to draw. There's nothing behind them. And transparent pixels will continue to draw. So an overdraw, especially on mobile, is very, very expensive. Oh yeah, and we maximize the opaque coverage as much as we can by even changing it with modular scenes, all these things, to just make sure that we have as little transparent pixels as possible. Pseudo lighting, it's one of my favorite parts. So I'm not a great artist, but Simon wanted a much more evocative type of visuals. And with all these, the picture that he sent me, all the mock-ups that he made, there were clearly things that we were not able to do at the time. And he showed me this picture of like this dramatic light. And I tried to figure out how to make that dramatic light without adding lights to the scene, which is going to make it extremely heavy. So this is how it used to look. It used to be you just had walls, and the wall has one color. It has various different overlays. You can make shadow a little bit, or like a highlight, but it's still going to have one color. So I came up with the idea of tint orbs. Now tint orbs basically it started as an orb, and then like a capsule that has one or a gradient of colors that are applied to anything, any sprite that happens to be under those orbs. Now imagine that you have vertices under those orbs. Those vertices will be changed. The color parameter in those vertices is going to change. And this is how it looks like. Just apply the colors as you see fit, and you can create any dramatic effect you want. And under the hood, this is how it looks like. We just cut the sprites a little more finely to have more vertices. And then each vertex looks at all the different orbs around it, kind of averages all the colors, and all right, I'm black, orange, and this is going to be my color. Pre-culling, something that took a long time to make. So as you can see, this is an actual live demo of level 5 of the game, the roller coaster level. You can see that the game is only presented with just the relevant sprites. The culling is removing some of the sprites so the GPU doesn't have to handle them at all. And the reason is we know much more than the culling system about the sprites. We know that the entire game is facing, all the sprites are basically facing the camera. We know that their size is not going to change. We know that they're not going to move forward or backward. So it's very, very easy to know that a certain sprite is going to be moved away. So we very slowly just go through all these sprites as the game is playing and remove those. And then the player, all he knows about is, 500 sprites, which is not too much. Next thing. So limit excessive built-in culling load, and I talked about that. Oh, and also, it's not just for sprites, it's also for physical objects. So a lot of the physical objects that are out of the camera, I can turn them off. I can put them to sleep, or I can even make them kinematic, so even the physics system is not burdened by this. If you ask yourself why the sky is moving up and down, is because their vertical compensation factor. If I start moving down really fast, and basically I'm going to have to draw a really, really tall sky. So I make it move horizontally just as fast as the mushroom, but vertically slightly slower. So for that I actually move the sky. Anyway, summary. If you look into the statistics, you see that this very, very complicated picture on the right is actually using 10 draw calls. So I think it's a pretty good thing. So we reduce the culling and physics load by disabling out-of-camera objects. We made the lighting and tinting use the baked colors directly into the mesh. Dynamic flood fill, talk about that. We limit the use of transparent materials to avoid overdraw. And the textures are used to reduce materials and therefore reduce draw calls. All right, let's talk about animation a little bit. So the idea was to maintain the organic nature of mushroom web. And a decision that I made very early on is to build the game on, to avoid keyframe animation and always favor different dynamic animation, which also would, keyframe has its own price. So I use bones a lot and vertex animation a lot, using a lot of procedural and dynamic animations. And I'll show that. One very, very cheap option to use for animation is to use UV animation. UV animation is basically when the sprite is intact, all the vertices stay put, but the UV is the position of the texture that that vertex is pointing to. So all we do is change the UV, and that makes a kind of an organic effect. We just have to split those sprites finally, and then the position can be shifted using, for example, what I did here is I pre-calculated sine waves, and just each one of the vertices just moves on a different cycle of the sine wave. Mesh bending, that's much heavier. First of all, the sprite is split into quads, as we did before. In this case, we're talking about actually changing the mesh. Now we apply control points, for example, these control points. And then before the execution, we look at the relationship between every control point and every vertex. We know the distances and their angular distances as well. And then on runtime, we can shift those points, those control points. And as those control points move, we just we do the reverse calculation, and we know where the vertices would end up. And that ends up having a lot of applications. For example, one simple application is very basic soft body physics. You apply these control points to some physical objects. Another one is the surface chain-based fluid dynamics. So obviously, it's not true fluid dynamics. It works really well. Basically, you have one sprite that is rendered based on this chain that is based on the surface. All right. Environmental interaction. Go through this quickly. Some things that you can do, some interesting things that you can do in Mushroom 11. So you probably noticed that all the interactions in Mushroom 11 are based on the environment. The mushroom does not do anything. It's all the environment that is how the environment applies certain obstacles or challenges onto it. Water is one of my favorite. What it basically does, water is super simple, really. It just applies an upward velocity to anything that happens to be in that trigger area, and it also dampens the horizontal velocity as well. The animation of the water is based on, as we said, like this surface area. It's actually not part of the physical interaction, just for show. And this behavior affects all the objects that you can see here. We have stickiness later on in the game. This is again this one is very, very simple. You just apply this virtual spring between pieces that touch over and interlock with the mushroom. It creates this virtual lock. If that virtual lock is the distance grows too much, then it just cuts, and this applies an interesting behavior. One of my favorites is the steam. The way it works is that there are various raycasts that are applied upward toward the direction of the steam, and it detects all the collision points and providing some elevation to each one of those points. But then what it does, it actually, each one of those hit points creates a split, and it splits sideways. And those raycasts in turn apply an additional push towards the side, which favors a shape of like a parachute versus a ball. And this is like the simplest model I can make of turbulence. Instead of having like this interesting behavior that you have to do, I just basically use a very, very basic raycast. Infection. We talked a little bit about how colors move inside the body. The infection basically is spread using a very simple turbulence system, much simpler than what we saw here even. And the only way you can remove those is by completely remove the infected area. Grinding, another interesting part and thing that you can do with Mushroom 11. So there's basically a kind of a destructor in one side, and for every cell that's destroyed on one side, you have a new single cell piece that's created on the other. So it's really almost no code in there. All you do is you take the new cell that was created there and just apply some velocity and throw it away. And since we talked about that, the fact that you can't grow in mid-air, then it will not grow until it touches the wall. All right, and now for the last part, quickly on camera control. I talked about this before, so I'm just going to touch it. So it's all based on camera regions, and this is the work of the designer, which is me, like figuring out how the player is going to move in each one of those areas. In some areas you would want to move vertically, in some areas you want to have more like a big box that you can move in, and in some areas you always so yeah, each camera region is tailored basically on the nature of that area on the puzzle. And the camera always follows the most advanced region. So as soon as one piece goes through to the next level, it will completely ignore the previous levels, previous regions. And in many cases, you just need to find the average position of all the cells. So you can't really tell in this case which cell is more important, and in some cases there's no real progress direction. So you just go to the average position of all the cells, and you can see that even the average is based on the cells and not the two pieces. So if you have more pieces on one side, then the average would lean to that side. So, yeah. But in some areas, there's a clear progression trajectory. Like in this case, you go from right to left. So the pieces that are the focus is always on the pieces that are in front, and the pieces that are left behind are also less likely to grow, and as they get to the edge of the screen, they get destroyed. You can also see that some additional forward view is applied, because it's always more interesting to see what's in front of you. And since we already know that this is this region has some trajectory, we know it can go from right to left, then we can try to put the center, you center it on slightly to the left of the mushrooms. And in some cases, there are some obstacles that you want to focus on. In this case, if I try to just focus on the mushroom or the average of all the mushrooms, I would not even see see the boss, right? So in this case, I'm doing a 50-50, kind of like a weighted average between the mushroom, or the average of all the mushrooms, and the boss. All right, and for much more info on this one, and on 2D camera system in general, you can check out my blog post and GDC talk called Scroll Back. And that's it. Thank you very much.
好的，那现在是 Q&A 时间，请问有人有问题吗？
Go ahead. Very interesting approach. And have you thought about using this? This is a 2D apple.
Yeah.
Have you thought about going to 3D? Well, I'm just sitting here wondering if capture could be 3D.
Yes, I've been thinking about it a lot. Thank you for the question, by the way. The question was whether this would work in 3D, or if I had any thought about this. I even recently thought about this in the VR. Honestly, I don't think it's going to work. If you think about it, one of the most important parts is how would you define progression? And this is we're going more towards the design and less towards the technical part, because technically it's pretty much the same. But how would you move? Basically, you would destroy pieces from the back. You can never destroy anything from the front. So, for example, building up is going to be very, very difficult. How do you build up? You know, you can cut from the right, you can cut from the left, but you can't cut from the front. You have to go around it. So it becomes a different game.
Right.
But yeah, I'm thinking about it, and you never know.
Thank you. Could you go back to the slide?
How the skyline was built?
Yeah.
And how you manage the problem of overdraw?
Yes. See? This one. Right. Oh yeah, yeah. And also said something about the slanted sky. Anyway, so let's see here. Right. So, okay, so the idea is that because we have a transparent part and opaque part, I'm always trying to maximize the opaque versus the transparent. So for every, now if we look here, you can see that all the information is already the transparent on the transparent side. But then imagine you take this imaginary line for each one of those parallax layers and go as high as you can before it becomes transparent. And you take that line and copy it to the new texture. So if, for example, you go to the bottom one, the darker one, you go all the way up to the building over there, and you copy that one. Basically, you have this homogeneous big box that could be used as opaque. And since it's opaque, I don't need to draw anything behind it. And that actually helps the performance tremendously. And this is how it looks. It looks exactly the same. Only more than half of the area has been used, is using an opaque texture. Anyway, so, and a second, I did promise to talk about the slanted sky. This is a really simple trick. This is how it actually looks in the editor. The slanted sky, if you think about it, it's moving. As it's moving, the top part is closer to the camera, right? And because it's closer to the camera, it seems like things that are higher move faster. So they move faster. This gives an illusion of an actual sky using really no overlays. So that was the trick. And you can also see the different buildings between the parallax layers. So all you need is all these layers. They are tiling, so they repeat themselves. They repeat themselves in different different distances. So it actually looks very random. And then we just apply a couple more buildings, a couple more textures there, and it looks very random.
So I would like to ask, because there's a lot of dynamic part in the game, and do you have like problem with like memory allocation, because it's like garbage collection is very expensive in Unity? Do you have any kind of problem about that, and how do you solve it?
So I'm not sure I got the first part. Can you repeat the first part, please?
Or just like regarding about like, do you have any special measure to avoid allocating the memory that needs to be?
Oh yeah, so I am actually almost never allocating anything. So everybody knows about garbage collection in Unity in particular. So I don't care that much because every single thing that I have in the game is pre-calculated. So we're talking about the colliders, we talked about the pools, different pools. I have the same thing for the mushroom pieces, the obstacles, the bosses, the creatures. Everything is pooled as much as even things like the fireballs. So every time I have a whatever fireball shooting plant, it immediately, as the game loads, as the level loads, it immediately allocates like 4 times as many as you will ever need. And then when the game is idle, again, which means half a second of no erasing or growth, then I can immediately replenish all these pools, so nobody would ever notice anything. But yeah, definitely this is a big problem, and you need to be aware of it.
Thank you.
还有人有吗？ Hello, I have a question with the Marshall system. If you would like to share this system on internet, like your the 2D camera.
So, what system would you like to know about?
I want to know the Marshall system. Yeah, just like we begin the machine how to
Transparency?
Yeah, how to relate it and
Okay, I hope I'm answering the right question. So, are you talking about this part?
before.
Before that?
Yeah. So it's all for part and I want to know. No, I just want to know, can share it on internet. Maybe I can.
Oh, you're talking about the texture? The texture?
He's talking about the slides. Can you share it on internet? The slides of the presentation.
Oh yeah, of course. Everything's on the internet. Yeah. Okay.
So I can find out.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were okay. Yeah. Everything's gonna be online. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
还有人有问题吗？都没有。OK， 好，那我们再次感谢Itay Keren的演说。好，最后提醒大家，明天进场需要带吊牌，然后需要口译机的人，请带你的身份证件来借换。然后如果有遗失物的话，可以到柜台领取。谢谢大家今天的参与。